Did you know that some of the most dreaded serial killers in Africa come from Nigeria, South Africa, Morocco, Ghana, Kenya, and Swaziland? So, in today's episode, we'll dive into the worlds of these dreaded serial killers and their terrible deeds. From cold-blooded murders to their manipulative tactics that will bring chills to your spine. We are examining Africa's most deadly serial killers, and without further ado, let's dive in. Gracious David West. His early life. He was born an only child of his mother, born into a polygamous home. His mother died of food poisoning, and being an only son of his family, much was expected from him. What did he do? David West became one of the most dreaded serial killers in Africa. He confessed to having an irresistible urge to kill, and every night he would scour the streets in his vehicle looking for victims who are mostly sex workers. He would take the victims to local hotels where there would be less securities and no CCTV cameras. Inside the hotel rooms, he would eat, have sex with the girls, and at midnight he would wake up and threaten the victims with a knife. Before he killed these women, he would rob them of their money, debit cards, and other valuables. David West would turn on the television or radio so loud and use strips of clothes he had cut from pillowcases to tie up the victims before strangling them to death. How was he caught? He was arrested on his way to Port Harcourt on September 19, 2019. Some of his victims include Jennifer Nwokocha, Maureen Ewuru, Linda Warepa, Dorcas Francis, Blessing Effiong, Rose Samuel, Kelechi Bridget Onoha, Patience Hamo, and Antonia Ibe. However, after his conviction, he was sentenced to death by hanging. This man from South Africa earned his nickname the Panga Man because he used machete to torture, kill, and mutilate his victims. All the 16 men and women he killed were all whites. However, he was hanged on the 14th of November 1960. Clifford Orji was not just a serial killer but an alleged cannibal who feasted on the flesh of his victims. He was originally from Enugu State, Nigeria. A razor blade merchant but later proclaimed himself a native doctor and lived under a highway bridge in Oshodi Isolo Highway, pretending to be mentally ill. How was he caught? On February 3, 1999, Clifford Orji was arrested after a missing woman was discovered almost dead near his home under the bridge. Inside there, fresh and cooked human body parts were discovered. Human skulls were still lying around. Female underwears, a check of 80,000 naira, and a mobile phone were found. At the time, mobile phones had not been fully introduced into the Nigerian market. Only the wealthy had mobile phones. So it's obvious he was a human body part merchant and worked for the high and mighty. He confessed to kidnapping, murder, and cannibalism, stating he and his accomplice had been eating human meat for the past 7 years. However, 12 years after his arrest, his case was yet to come to trial. Prison authorities disclosed he cannot be tried when insane, and he was not treated for his mental illness. Clifford Orji died at the age of 46 on August 17, 2012. To see more stories like this, click on the subscribe button to stay updated with true crime stories happening across Africa, and I really appreciate your support. This South African man, Moses Sithole, was arguably the most dangerous serial killer in Africa. He was intelligent, polished, and psychopathic. His early life. He was born on the 17th of November 1964. When he was 5 years old, his father died and his mother abandoned the family. He was arrested for rape in his teenage and he spent 7 years in prison. How he operated. To lure his victims, Sithole established a dummy organization called Youth Against Human Abuse, purportedly dedicated to eradicate child abuse. He would invite applicants from women for various positions, and after the interviews, he would lead the victims through an open field where he attacked them, dragged them away from site, raped them, and finally strangled them with their underwears. He once inflicted a head wound on the 2-year-old son of one of his victims and left him to die from exposure. How was he caught? In August 2019, Sithole was identified as having been seen with one of the victims, but he disappeared afterwards. In October the same year, he contacted a journalist and identified himself as the wanted murderer. During a phone conversation with the journalist, he disclosed the killings were carried out as a revenge for his unjust imprisonment and claimed he had killed 76 persons and gave direction to where one of the bodies had been left. However, He was cornered in Johannesburg, where he attacked a constable with a hatchet, and after trial, he was convicted and sentenced to 2,410 years in prison and would be eligible for parole after serving at least 930 years. China Rambo was a former bandit and armed robbery kingpin that terrorized southwest Nigeria in the 90s. He was born in Abeokuta, Ogun State, Nigeria, was a fetishist and believed in rituals and human sacrifices. He later became a pastor after he was released from prison and preached the gospel. Have you subscribed yet? Click on the subscribe button for more true crime stories from across Africa. David Simin was a Swaziland serial killer who caused havoc during his reign. His murder spree began in 1997 after he had been arrested, convicted and released for rape and armed robbery. Simin lured most of his victims to the woods, where he would kill and bury them in shallow graves. He had an accomplice on whose farm the first 6 bodies were uncovered. How was he caught? 2 Mozambicans he hired to dig the graves tipped off the police and they were arrested. Simin led the police to the shallow graves in Mazini, where 45 bodies were found, including a pregnant woman. Many of them were strangled to death and some stabbed with a knife. He was found guilty of 28 murders and was sentenced to death in 2011. Charles Kwanzaa, a man from Ghana, was arrested and charged for the murder of 34 women. This happened after his girlfriend, Joyce Boateng, was murdered. Before the murder charge, Charles had been in and out of prison for rape and robbery. Most of the murdered victims were found lying in supine position with their legs widely spread and a used discarded condom near their bodies. Raya and Sakina. What did they do? Raya and Sakina, together with their husbands, killed 17 women. They were Egyptian women and their motives were robbery, after which they would hold down and suffocate their victims. That sounds so bad, I know. Before the sisters were caught, there were multiple police reports that placed them with their victims most times. They were seen befriending their female victims who were known to be wealthy and extravagant dressers. Investigation into the sisters started in 1920 when a room rented in their names was discovered filled with murdered females. They were the first females to be publicly executed by the modern state of Egypt. Cedric Maake, popularly known as the Wema Pan Killer. His reign of terror lasted for less than a year, and he was considered one of the ruthless serial killers because he had no specific people or preferred victim. His criminal act started when he started robbing taxi drivers and shop owners. It later escalated to attacking couples. He killed the men first and raped the women before he killed them. He was eventually arrested in December 1997 and was convicted of 14 rapes, 26 attempted murders, 27 murders, 41 robberies, and unlawful possession of ammunition and firearms. He is currently serving a sentence of 1,340 years. Hajj Muhammad was a Moroccan serial killer who murdered at least 36 women. He worked as a shoemaker and was a trader. Mesfewi killed young women who came to his shop to dictate letters. He drugged the victims before decapitating them with a dagger. How was he caught? Mesfewi was caught after the parent of one of the young victims traced her movement back to his shop. There, authorities found remains of 20 mutilated bodies in a deep pit under his shop. Another 16 bodies were discovered in the garden outside. Mesfewi was convicted and was initially sentenced to be crucified, but due to international outcry, the sentence was changed to beheading. However, in June 1906, he was buried alive inside a wall. Abdullahi Hadi, earned the name the Butcher of Tarodant. He dropped out of school after his mother's death, and at the age of 14 was a victim of gang rape by a group of street thugs. Other victims were teenage boys, and their bodies were discovered under a shack where he worked. After he was arrested, he admitted to all his crimes, stating he suffocated his victims while he raped them and was sentenced to death by hanging. Christopher Nlengwazikode was the serial killer responsible for the deaths of 18 people and the attempted murder of an additional 11 people between 1994 to 1995. He usually forced his way into victims' homes, killed the male members of the home, raped the females, and killed anyone who did not cooperate. Zikode was sentenced to 114 years in prison. David Rashen was convicted of 12 counts of murder, 17 counts of rape, 1 count of insidious assault, and 18 counts of kidnapping in 2009. This happened in the town of Modimolle, Limpopo, South Africa, from 2004 to 2008. Rashen was arrested and sentenced to 16 life sentences and additional 220 years in prison. Shortly after his sentence, he committed suicide by hanging in his cell. Johannes Mashiane, also known as the Beast of Atriville, sodomized 13 boys, of which he killed 12 by strangling and stoning them to death between 1982 to 1989. Before the murder charges, Mashiane had previously served 5 years in prison for killing his girlfriend. The day he was supposed to be arrested, he threw himself under a bus while eluding police and died instantly. Evans Wafola was the serial killer responsible for the murder of 5 children. How did he operate? Wafola lured victims who were minors between the age of 10 and 15 years from different locations within Moyes Bridge in Michelle Gishu County, where he defied and killed them. Some of his victims are 13 years old Linda Cherono, Mary Elosa 14, Grace Njeri 12, 10 years old Stacy Nabiso, and 15 years old Lucy Wanjala. He took detectives to some of the scenes where they found the remains of the victims. Edward Miana Shimoli killed 14 people, raped 88 women, and took part in various bank robberies in just 10 years. Edward spared no one when he attacked, and this included his wife and brother-in-law. He was charged with murder and jailed at Jamaica Maximum Prison, where he escaped 4 times. However, shortly after he was released from prison in 2007, he was shot dead. Geoffrey Matere, also known as Fungo, got attention as a serial killer in 2008 after 2 women were rescued from a house in Yasha while in deplorable state unable to speak. Fungo was determined to suck their blood and eat their flesh while they washed. He confessed he buried the victims in shallow graves and kept their underwears as trophy. Wilton Sipalo was a Zambian serial killer and rapist. He earned the name the Lusaka Strangler because he killed a victim every week. Between January and September 1980, Wilton killed 30 women including a newborn child. How was he caught? One of his 2 surviving victims accompanied the police to the bus station where they were attacked. She quickly recognized Sipalo as her attacker and he was arrested. Then what happened? 3 days later, Sipalo escaped the clutches of the police officers, escorting him and ran to the roof of the police station where he jumped and killed himself. What are your thoughts about these serial killers that reign terror in Africa? Write them down in the comment section down below and click on the cards on your screen for more videos.